with the Social Security, I don't know if they're going to go from worst to first as far as government agencies, but they have actually, correct me if I'm wrong, been viewed to be one of the worst government agencies, right? And the work that they're doing. So let's start with that. I mean, can could it have gotten any worse? How bad was it?
Well, it's not that it's so bad, but they've made it very uncomfortable for employees. During the last administration, a third of the employees retired with their full pension, and there was a hiring freeze. So that meant two-thirds of the employees had to do 100% of the work. And now that they've been hiring, they have a lot of new employees who don't know what they're doing. The experienced employees are busy teaching them. Um, During COVID, at one point, a memo was sent out, everybody was working from home, that said, if you have children under age 12 and you're at home, we're going to assume you're not working full time unless you have someone watching them. Now, you're supposed to be locked down away from everybody, but they were going to say you had to have somebody come in and watch your children. The union stopped that from happening, but just some things to make people unhappy at work. Uh, Most of the people working for Social Security are conscientious and really trying to do a good job. It's
Yeah,
just a difficult situation.
yeah, they're faced with a lot of work, and you know they're understaffed. So um, now I know the just last week there was an update on the Anderson Cooper piece that was uh, I think a good talking point for today. He originally did a piece on overpayments, and then he did this follow-up piece. And in the follow-up piece, he was saying that there has been some changes by the commissioner that have been that it's been improvements. We'll talk about those in a minute. And then the people that were subject to these overpayments, they actually, I guess, the media helped them out. They didn't have to pay the money back. So where I want to go with this at this point, Jim, is in the time that you have been doing this, like, what is the validity to the optimism? Are the changes that are being made, are these like the real deal? Have you seen anything like this in your experience in the past?
Let me give a little background first. I've been going to Washington, meeting with people in Congress since 1981 on disability issues. And in 81, Ronald Reagan has proven to be the worst president ever for people trying to get Social Security disability. He vowed to cut off 500,000 people a year from their disability benefits. He attempted to do that. There were suicides all over the country. We actually got hold of the interoffice memo showing that they were trying to cut off the people with mental illness first because they were least able to fight back when they got these termination notices. They then tried to put something in place saying that you had to list all of your conditions when you filed for disability. That meant that most people didn't list everything. They list what made them stop working. But let's say they stopped working because they had back surgery, but they didn't list they'd also had heart problems and neurological problems. When they were denied and finally came to get a representative, the representative said, we're going to put all of those things in. They would have had to refile and lose all of the time from the initial application to the new one. And they tried to implement that to take away benefits from people. So it was just disgraceful what they tried to do. Until this month, George Bush was absolutely the best president for helping the disabled get better representation. He made some changes during his term that were just great for people trying to get disability. Joe Biden has surpassed that. He appointed Martin O'Malley as Commissioner of Social Security. And Commissioner O'Malley is the first commissioner in the 50 years I've been representing claimants who actually listens to claimants' representatives, understands some of the problems in the system. The first big change that Commissioner O'Malley made was when you've applied for disability, you had to list all of your work for the past 15 years. That's extremely difficult, first of all, to remember for some people. And then I had a case last year of someone who had been a truck driver for the last 14 years, but the year before that, she was a secretary. And they tried to say that her skills as a secretary 15 years ago kept her from being disabled. It took a lot of cross-examining of the vocational witness to show that nothing she did as a secretary 15 years ago related to anything she'd have to do now. But if somebody was in there alone, they couldn't do that. When Ronald Reagan became president, 8% of the people got representation for Social Security claims. Now it's about 85%. They've made it so difficult. Making it a 5-year look back instead of 15 is a huge, huge change. But then last Friday, they came out with another change that was even better. The Social Security forever has used something called the Dictionary of Occupational Titles to determine what past work is. The Dictionary of Occupational Titles was last updated in 1991. So when they were looking at jobs you could do, they were looking at a book that was so outdated it was ridiculous. And in the memo with this new rule, it says we're now using current federal employment data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics to make these new rules. And they will not deny disability benefits based on the existence of isolated jobs existing only in limited numbers in relatively few locations. To tell you some of the jobs they used to use when they testify and say, well, you could do this and this. One of them was a hostess in a dance hall. Another was a nut sorter. Another was a magnetic tape winder or a microfilm processor. They can't use those anymore. Others they can't use. A motion picture projectionist, a camera repairer, a machinist for motion picture equipment, a watch repairer. Now, really, a watch repair just sits there and doesn't lift anything heavy, except people don't have watches like they used to. Another job they got rid of is reptile warden. Another one, here's one that everybody knows about, directory assistance operator. A couple months ago, I had a vocational witness say a client could be a directory assistance operator, but on cross-examination, she really couldn't tell me how many jobs there were in that field, since most phone companies have done away with that. Another one they had that they did away with is pay station attendant. Most turnpikes don't have people taking your money anymore. Right. There aren't a lot of parking lots that are using them. They're going to self-pay. Here's one of my favorite, an impersonator character.
What's that?
It takes some skill to be an impersonator. A fur farmer and a canary breeder. So they got rid of those. Some of these are just comical, but they're trying to make the jobs more relevant. And, you know, yes, you could be a computer operator, but not if you have a 10th grade education. And they're trying to get more relevant. They got rid of over 100 jobs that they were using to deny people disability. It's a huge breakthrough. What we have to do now, though, is go back through a lot of the cases that were denied nationally and get them reopened. That's going to be a nightmare for Social Security, but a huge benefit for claimants who were denied benefits.
So just focusing on this one point, this is amazing information. If somebody was out there and they were denied in their hearing denial letter, would it reference the jobs that they cited that they could do?
It should reference the jobs that it should reference that. Yeah. I just gave you a brief sampling of the hundreds of jobs that no longer can be cited.
Yeah.
And those jobs that no longer can be cited are just representative of many others. So it's a huge difference. But if they were represented, they should contact their representative and ask if it could be reopened. Even if it's past the appeal period, some of them can still be reopened.
Yeah, that's powerful. Yeah. So somebody was denied 5 years ago for a nut sorter job. There's some hope.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Wow.
And
I don't know, man. That's huge really encouraging.
Right. That's a huge past due benefit they'd be entitled to.
Yeah, that'd be a game changer. Right, right. Okay, so the 5-year look back, and the Dictionary of Occupational Titles has been updated. You referenced about 100 jobs have been eliminated from it, right?
Well, they're gradually eliminating the Dictionary of Occupational Titles. They haven't totally eliminated it yet. Um, I was at a hearing a couple of weeks ago with a client who only had one eye, and the vocational witness said, "There's nothing in the Dictionary of Occupational Titles about monocular vision." And I said, "Is there something in ORS, which is what the Bureau of Labor Statistics job category is called?" And the judge said, "What's ORS?" And I said, "That's going to be what you're using soon to determine jobs. And it's a more up to date system. It gets updated daily by the Department of Labor." And then I said to the vocational witness, "Does that describe it well?" She said, "Except for one thing, it's easier for us to look things up in ORS too, because it's all electronic." So
Okay.
they haven't even told the judges about this yet.
I'm sure they love you when you go in for a hearing.
Most of them do.
That's great. Great. Um, okay, so we have some good things going on. And folks, for those of you that are listening, you actually have the ability to make a difference, because the success that is going on right now, and correct me, Attorney Brown, is fantastic, but there's no guarantee that the commissioner is going to be in place. And there's something that you can do, we'll cover at the end, um, to make a difference. All right. So
Let me say
you're,
one more thing,
yeah,
Brian.
yeah.
You should write your senators or your representatives and thank them for these changes. Even though people in the House and Senate had little of anything to do with it, they may or may not know about it, but nobody says thank you anymore. And if you write them and say, "These changes are terrific, thank you for letting them happen," it will get noticed and they'll be less likely to be rolled back.
Yeah, that's well said.